What happens when one of Hollywood's most beloved stars walks onto a talk show set expecting a friendly conversation, only to face a host who seems determined to tear him down? It only took one comment about his family for Dwayne Johnson to do something he had never done before in his entire career: walk off a live television set, leaving an audience in stunned silence and a host scrambling to understand what just went wrong. The energy in the studio that day started off like any other taping. The crowd was excited, their phones tucked away, ready to watch one of Hollywood's biggest names in person. The cameras were rolling, the lighting was perfect, and Dwayne Johnson walked out onto the stage with that signature smile that has made him one of the most recognizable faces on the planet. He waved to the audience, took his seat, and adjusted his microphone. He had come to talk about his latest film, his production company, and his journey from wrestling to becoming one of the highest paid actors in the entertainment industry. He had done this routine hundreds of times before. He knew how these shows worked. What he did not expect was to become the target of a host who seemed more interested in creating drama than having a genuine conversation. Jennifer Hudson sat across from him in her chair, greeting him with a smile and a handshake that seemed pleasant enough on the surface. But from the very first question, something felt off. The tone was sharp. The energy was different. The audience could sense it. Dwayne could sense it. But being the professional he is, he kept his composure and smiled through it, giving her the benefit of the doubt that maybe he was reading too much into it. "So, Dwayne," Jennifer started, leaning back in her chair with a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. "You have built this whole brand around being the hardest worker in the room, the guy who is always grinding, always hustling. But let me ask you something. Do you ever feel like maybe you are trying too hard? Like maybe you are compensating for something?" The audience went quiet. It was an unusual way to start an interview, and Dwayne's smile faltered for just a second before he recovered. "Compensating?" he asked, his tone still friendly, but with a hint of confusion. "I'm not sure I understand what you mean. Could you clarify?" Jennifer waved her hand dismissively, as if his request for clarification was somehow annoying to her. "You know what I mean. This whole persona you have created. The motivation, the early morning workouts, the constant posting on social media about your routine, the workout videos, the meal prep photos, the inspirational quotes. It just seems like a lot. Like maybe you are trying to prove something to people. Like maybe deep down you are insecure about something." The audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This was getting personal very quickly, and not in a good way. Dwayne took a breath and maintained his composure, though you could see the confusion in his eyes. "I wake up early and work hard because that is what I have always done since I was a teenager. It is not about proving anything to anyone. It is about being the best version of myself and setting an example for my daughters and for anyone who looks up to me. If sharing my routine helps motivate even one person to get up and chase their goals, then it is worth it." "Right, right," Jennifer said, nodding but not looking convinced at all. Her expression suggested she had not heard a word he said. "But do not you think that sets an unrealistic standard? I mean, not everyone can wake up at 4 in the morning and go to the gym for 2 hours before starting their day. Some of us have real responsibilities. Some of us have actual lives to live outside of a gym and a film set." There was an uncomfortable shift in the audience. Did she just suggest that Dwayne Johnson does not have real responsibilities? Did she just imply that his life was somehow less real or less demanding than anyone else's? Dwayne's jaw tightened slightly, but he kept his voice even and controlled. "I have 3 daughters who I love more than anything in this world, a production company with hundreds of employees depending on me, multiple film projects in various stages of development, and various business ventures that require my attention and decision-making. I think I understand responsibility pretty well, but I also understand that everyone's journey is different, and I have never once claimed that my way is the only way. I share what works for me. People are free to take from it what they want. Sure, Jennifer said, but her tone suggested she was not really listening to his answer. She was already moving on to her next line of attack. Let me ask you about something else. Your movies. You have made a lot of movies in the past few years. A lot of them. And if I am being honest, and I think I should be honest with you, a lot of them are kind of the same, are not they? Big muscles, big explosions, you playing some version of the same character over and over, saving the day with your fists and your charm. Do you ever worry that you are becoming a parody of yourself? That people are going to eventually get tired of seeing the same thing again and again? The question landed like a bomb in the studio. Several audience members gasped audibly. Others looked at each other in disbelief. This was not playful banter. This was not a challenging question asked with curiosity. This was an attack, plain and simple. Dwayne sat forward in his chair, his expression serious now. The smile was gone. I am proud of every single project I have been a part of. I work with incredible directors, talented writers, and amazing actors who pour their hearts and souls into these films. We work 14, 16-hour days to create something entertaining. And the audiences around the world, millions and millions of people, seem to enjoy them, which is what matters most to me. I am not making movies for critics who want to tear everything apart. I am making them for families, for people who want to escape for a couple of hours and have a good time and forget about their problems. But do not you want to be taken seriously as an actor? Jennifer pressed, leaning forward as if she was going in for the kill. I mean, really seriously. When is the last time you did something that really challenged you as a performer? Something with real depth, real emotional complexity. Something that made people see you as more than just an action star. Because from where I am sitting, it looks like you are playing it safe, choosing projects based on paychecks rather than artistic merit. Every role challenges me in different ways, Dwayne replied, his patience clearly wearing thin. You could see it in his eyes, in the set of his jaw. And I have been fortunate enough to work in different genres, from comedy to drama to action. But I am not going to apologize for making entertaining movies that people love and that bring joy to families around the world. If that makes me less of an actor in your eyes, then I guess we will have to agree to disagree. Jennifer shrugged, a dismissive gesture that showed she did not value anything he had just said. I am just saying, you have been doing the same thing for years and years now. The same formula, the same type of character, the same predictable storylines. At some point, do not you think people are going to get bored? I mean, how many times can you save the world or rescue people from disasters before it gets old and stale? How many times can you flex your muscles on screen before audiences start rolling their eyes? Dwayne took another deep breath, visibly trying to maintain his composure. Is there a particular reason you invited me here today? Because it seems like you have already made up your mind about me and my career, and nothing I say is going to change that. It feels less like an interview and more like you brought me here to insult me in front of your audience. Oh, do not be so sensitive, Jennifer said with a laugh that sounded forced and artificial. I am just asking questions. Hard questions, sure, but questions nonetheless. Is not that what talk shows are supposed to be for? Real conversations? Honest discussions? Or do you only want to come on shows where people kiss your feet and tell you how amazing and wonderful you are? Where everyone treats you like you are perfect and can do no wrong? Because if that is what you are looking for, maybe you are on the wrong show. I am fine with tough questions, Dwayne said, his voice firm and steady despite his obvious frustration. I welcome them, actually. But there is a difference between tough questions asked with respect and what you are doing right now, which is disrespect disguised as journalism. I came here to have a conversation, not to be belittled and mocked for your entertainment. Jennifer rolled her eyes in an exaggerated way that made her look petty and immature. Here we go. The big tough guy who can take on villains and monsters on screen, but cannot handle a few pointed questions. The big tough guy can dish it out, but cannot take it. Interesting. Very interesting. What exactly have I dished out? Dwayne asked, his confusion genuine. Oh, please, Jennifer said, sitting up straighter. You walk around acting like you are better than everyone else with your perfect life and your perfect family and your perfect body. It is exhausting. Some of us are just trying to keep it real. The audience was completely silent now. This had gone from uncomfortable to shocking. No one could believe what they were hearing. Dwayne's expression hardened. I have never claimed to be perfect. I have been very open about my struggles, my depression, my failures. Wait, I share my journey because I want people to know that success does not come easy and that it is okay to struggle. If that comes across as me thinking I am better than anyone, then I apologize. But that has never been my intention. Depression, Jennifer repeated with a scoff. Right, because you have so much to be depressed about with your millions of dollars and your movie star life. Give me a break. That comment crossed a line, and everyone in the room knew it. Mental health is not a joke, and dismissing someone's struggles because they are successful is both ignorant and cruel. Dwayne stood up from his chair, his massive frame towering over the set. His face was calm, but his eyes showed the hurt and anger he was feeling. I think we are done here, he said quietly. Wait, what? Jennifer said. I'm suddenly realizing she might have pushed too far. You are leaving? We are in the middle of an interview. No, Dwayne corrected her. You are in the middle of an attack, and I do not have to sit here and take it. Oh, come on, Jennifer said, trying to laugh it off. I was just having a little fun. Can you not take a joke? Jokes are supposed to be funny, Dwayne said. What you have been doing for the past 15 minutes is not funny. It is mean-spirited. It is disrespectful. And frankly, it is beneath what I thought this show was supposed to be about. Jennifer's face flushed. You know what? Maybe you are right. Maybe you are too sensitive for this kind of conversation. Maybe you should go back to your action movies where everyone tells you how great you are and no one challenges you. Challenging someone and disrespecting them are two different things, Dwayne said, and the fact that you do not see the difference is exactly why I am leaving. He turned to walk off the stage, and Jennifer stood up from her chair. Fine, leave, she called after him. Just proves my point that you cannot handle real conversation. Dwayne stopped and turned back to face her, one last time. A real conversation requires two people who respect each other. You made it clear from the first question that you have no respect for me, my work, or my life. So yeah, I am leaving. And I hope you figure out why you felt the need to try to tear someone down instead of having a genuine discussion. I was just doing my job, Jennifer shouted back. Your job is to interview guests, not to insult them, Dwayne replied. There are plenty of hosts out there who know how to ask tough questions without being cruel. Maybe you should watch how they do it. The audience did not know whether to clap or stay silent. Some people started to applaud Dwayne as he walked toward the exit, while others sat in shock at what they had just witnessed. Jennifer stood on her stage, her face a mixture of anger and embarrassment. Well, I guess that is it, folks. Dwayne Johnson, everyone. So much for being the people's champion. That final jab was unnecessary and only made things worse. As Dwayne disappeared backstage, the audience's applause grew louder. They were not clapping for the show. They were clapping for a man who had stood up for himself with dignity and grace. The producers rushed to Jennifer, probably trying to figure out how to salvage the rest of the taping. But the damage was done. What was supposed to be a promotional interview for Dwayne's latest project had turned into a masterclass in how not to treat a guest. Backstage, crew members approached Dwayne to make sure he was okay. He thanked them for their concern and apologized for the disruption, even though none of it was his fault. That is the kind of person he is. Even in moments of frustration and hurt, he remains kind to the people around him. The conversation between Jennifer and Dwayne was supposed to be about his career, his projects, and his life. Instead, it became about something else entirely. It became about respect, about boundaries, and about knowing when to walk away from a situation that is no longer serving you. From the moment Dwayne sat down, Jennifer seemed to have an agenda. Her questions were not designed to learn more about him or to give the audience insight into his life. They were designed to provoke, to diminish, and to create conflict. Whether this was a decision she made on her own or something that was planned by the producers, we may never know. But what we do know is that Dwayne Johnson did not deserve to be treated that way. Let us go back to some of the specific things that were said, because they are worth examining. When Jennifer suggested that Dwayne was compensating for something with his work ethic, she was implying that his success was not genuine, that his drive came from a place of insecurity rather than passion and dedication. For someone who has worked as hard as Dwayne has to get where he is, that kind of comment is not just insulting. It is dismissive of his entire journey. Then there was the comment about his movies. Criticism is part of being in the entertainment industry, and Dwayne has faced plenty of it over the years. But there is a way to discuss someone's career choices without being condescending. Jennifer did not ask him about his creative process or what draws him to certain roles. She flat out said his movies were repetitive and suggested he was becoming a parody of himself. That is not journalism. That is just being mean. But the worst moment, the moment that truly crossed the line, was when she mocked his openness about his struggles with depression. Mental health is something that millions of people around the world deal with every single day. When a public figure like Dwayne Johnson speaks openly about his own battles with depression, it helps break down the stigma and makes others feel less alone. For Jennifer to dismiss that, to suggest that someone with money and fame cannot possibly have real problems, was not only wrong, but also dangerous. Depression does not discriminate. It does not care how much money you have or how successful you are. It does not care if you are a movie star or a construction worker. It is a real illness that affects real people, and anyone who has dealt with it knows how serious it is. For Jennifer to scoff at that showed a level of ignorance and insensitivity that was truly shocking. Throughout the entire exchange, Dwayne remained as composed as possible. He did not yell. He did not curse. He did not throw insults back at Jennifer, even though he would have been justified in doing so. He simply stood up for himself and decided that he did not need to stay in an environment where he was being disrespected. And that is what made his exit so powerful. It was not dramatic for the sake of being dramatic. It was not a publicity stunt or an overreaction. It was a man who knows his worth deciding that he deserves better treatment. It was a reminder that no matter how famous or successful you are, you do not have to accept being treated poorly. The audience's reaction said everything. They applauded him not because he walked off, but because he did so with class. He could have exploded. He could have made a scene, but instead, he calmly explained why he was leaving and walked away. That takes strength and self-control. As for Jennifer, her reaction throughout the interview revealed a lot. From the beginning, she seemed determined to paint Dwayne in a negative light. When he tried to answer her questions honestly and thoughtfully, she dismissed his responses. When he pushed back on her disrespect, she accused him of being too sensitive. And when he finally decided to leave, she tried to paint herself as the victim, as if she was just doing her job and he could not handle it. But the people watching saw through it. They saw a host who was more interested in creating drama than having a meaningful conversation. They saw someone who let her own feelings, whatever they may have been, get in the way of doing her job professionally. And they saw a guest who tried his best to remain respectful until it became clear that respect was not going to be returned. What made this situation even more difficult was that it was all happening in front of a live studio audience. These were real people who had taken time out of their day to come see a taping. They expected to see a fun interview with one of Hollywood's biggest stars. Instead, they witnessed an uncomfortable confrontation that left everyone feeling awkward and upset. The silence in that room after certain comments were made was deafening. You could feel the discomfort radiating through the audience. They did not know whether to laugh, to boo, or to just sit quietly and hope it would end. When Dwayne finally stood up to leave, many of them looked relieved. Not because they wanted him to go, but because the tension had become unbearable. It is worth noting that Dwayne has done hundreds of interviews over the years. He has been on every major talk show, done countless press junkets, and sat through marathon days of answering the same questions over and over. He is a professional who understands how the media works. For him to walk off a set, something truly extraordinary had to have happened. This was not a case of a celebrity having a bad day or being in a bad mood. This was a case of a person being pushed too far. Throughout his career, Dwayne has built a reputation as one of the nicest, most genuine people in Hollywood. Stories about his kindness are legendary. He takes time to meet with fans. He supports causes he believes in. And he treats everyone, from studio executives to production assistants, with the same level of respect. That is not an act. That is who he is. So when someone like that decides to walk away from an interview, it says something significant about what was happening in that moment. It says that the line between tough questions and personal attacks had been crossed. It says that being famous does not mean you forfeit your right to be treated with basic human decency. Jennifer's comment about Dwayne only wanting to be on shows where people praise him was particularly revealing. It showed that she fundamentally misunderstood what was happening. Dwayne was not upset because she was not praising him. He was upset because she was being disrespectful. There is a massive difference between those two things. Plenty of interviewers have asked Dwayne difficult questions over the years. They have questioned his career choices, asked about controversies, and pushed him on various topics. And he has always handled those interviews with grace because the questions, while tough, were asked with a baseline level of respect. They were asked by people who were genuinely interested in his answers, not by someone who seemed to have already decided he was not worth their time. The way Jennifer spoke to him, the tone she used, the dismissive gestures, all of it added up to create an environment that was hostile rather than challenging. And Dwayne, to his credit, recognized that and made the decision to remove himself from it. When he said that he hoped Jennifer would figure out why she felt the need to tear someone down, it was not said with anger. It was said with genuine confusion and perhaps a bit of sadness. Because the truth is, there was no reason for the interview to go the way it did. Dwayne came prepared to be open, to share his experiences, and to promote his work. Jennifer could have asked him interesting questions about his production company, about balancing work and family, about his journey from wrestling to acting. Instead, she chose confrontation. The moment when Dwayne pointed out that challenging someone and disrespecting them are different things was perhaps the most important moment of the entire exchange. It was a clear, articulate explanation of exactly what was wrong with the situation, and it was a lesson that extended far beyond that particular interview. In any conversation, whether it is on television or in everyday life, there is a way to disagree with someone, to question their choices, to debate their ideas, all without being disrespectful. You can push back on someone's arguments without attacking their character. You can ask tough questions without being cruel. And when you cross that line from challenging to disrespecting, you lose the right to be surprised when the other person decides they are done engaging with you. Dwayne's final words to Jennifer before he left were powerful in their simplicity. He did not try to have the last word or to embarrass her further. He simply stated his case and walked away. That is the mark of someone who is secure in themselves and their decisions. The applause that followed him out was not scripted. It was not planned. It was the genuine reaction of people who had just watched someone stand up for themselves in the face of unwarranted hostility. They were applauding his dignity, his self-respect, and his willingness to say enough is enough. As the cameras continued to roll and Jennifer stood alone on her stage, the reality of what had just happened began to sink in. Her attempt to create a viral moment had backfired spectacularly. Instead of looking tough or edgy, she looked petty and mean. Instead of Dwayne coming across as overly sensitive, he came across as someone with healthy boundaries who refuses to be mistreated. The crew backstage who approached Dwayne after he left the stage saw a man who was disappointed but not defeated. He apologized to them for any inconvenience, even though they were the ones apologizing to him for what he had to endure. That tells you everything you need to know about his character. What this incident really comes down to is respect. Respect for another person's time, their experiences, their struggles, and their humanity. Jennifer failed to show that respect from the very beginning of the interview, and Dwayne eventually decided that he valued himself too much to continue subjecting himself to that treatment. And that is the real story here. Not the drama, not the confrontation, but the decision that one man made to prioritize his own dignity over the expectations of a television show. It is a decision that resonated with people, because so many of us have been in situations where we felt disrespected or undervalued, and we wondered if we should speak up or just endure it. Dwayne showed that speaking up, or in his case, walking away, is not only acceptable, but sometimes necessary. You do not have to sit there and take abuse just because someone has a microphone or a camera pointed at you. You do not owe anyone access to you if they are going to use that access to hurt you. The interview that was supposed to be about promoting a movie became about something much more important. It became about self-worth, about boundaries, and about the kind of treatment that should be expected in any professional interaction. Jennifer's parting shot about him no longer being the people's champion was her final attempt to regain some control over the situation. But it only served to highlight how badly she had misread the room. The people were firmly on Dwayne's side. They had watched him try to remain cordial despite being attacked. They had seen him give her multiple opportunities to reset the tone of the conversation. And they had witnessed him finally making the decision that he had had enough. The fact that the audience's applause grew louder as he left the stage said everything. They were not clapping out of pity or awkwardness. They were clapping because they respected what he had just done. They were showing him that they understood why he left and that they supported his decision. In the end, what was supposed to be a simple interview turned into a defining moment. Not because of the conflict, but because of how one person chose to handle that conflict. Dwayne Johnson walked onto that stage as a guest. He walked off that stage as someone who had just reminded everyone watching that you should never accept being treated with anything less than basic human respect.